Excellent. Okay, it's 25 to 12 and the inquiry is resumed. Back to you, Mr. Bird.
We're going to do a deep dive, Mr. Tester, in terms of the Shepperton Tricks data. I don't know whether mine comes up with CD1228E, but you may come up with a different one.
I think I'm on. I've got CD1-238C.
Oh, well, there we are. We'll
So that-
play with you. But there we are. Just proving that. So let's go to 1238C then.
Okay, I was going to start on page 33 of the PDF, just so you can see that it says at the top Shepperton Studios.
Which PDF page number? In terms of a PDF page number, madam? No, mine.
133, mine. Right page. It's page.
Come up.
Page 120. Page 132, I think.
Let's have a look at that. No. It's fine.
I'm on the right page. At the top, there's a grey bar and it says, in the top right corner, it says Tuesday the 080621, page 3. And then it says trade name Shepperton Studios, multi-model survey site. Am I on the right one?
Yes.
Is that? Right?
Just to show you, that's the tricks data for Shepperton. If you then go to page, it says page 47 of my PDF, which says page 17 of the tricks data, Tuesday 8th for the 6/21. It says survey date 13th for the 8/13. It says car, LGV, motorcycle occupants. No, if you there's a table. The table's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oh, and then arrivals. It's on my PDF. It's page 47.
What's it? Thank you.
I'm not allowed to buy American splits.
No, that's yes. It says at the top, ma'am, people surveyed, car, LGV, motorcycle occupants. Okay, it's after all of that, it's a simple point.
Yes, they always are.
So you'll see, just as an example, so the point I was making was that with regard to Shepperton is that the actual mode share by single occupancy cars could be higher than 57%. just to illustrate the point from this survey, which is a Shepperton survey, which forms part of the TRIX data that informs the site. You can see there at the top, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's vehicle occupants. So 1 being single vehicle occupants. So for instance, 8 till 9, you have arrivals on 200. Of them in column 1, 165. And I think 165 over 200 is about 82%. Just as an example, but you could calculate through all of these on the various different days. After all of that, apologies.
And then I think back to Mr. Dix's rebuttal, I think just we also deal with Warner Brothers at Leavesden, which was page 25 of his rebuttal. 447 to 449. Where he relies on the fact that their original SOV was 88%, which by 2021 had reduced to 77%, evidenced through a monitoring report. This is an overall reduction of 26%.
Yes, but it's still in excess of 60%, and I don't think we've got the raw data behind that either to have a look at it. The Warner Brothers travel plan, again, I think was based on fairly low numbers of staff.
They're just recapping in the light of your appraisal of what's happening in other studios, the realism of the MFS target.
Again, as I stated earlier, all the evidence that I've seen suggests that 60% may not be achievable in Marlow, and therefore reliance on it in terms of needing to achieve it for either traffic or other means, I think is not a realistic vision.
And in terms, for example, the design of the scheme, how is the mode share inform the design of the scheme, for example, the size of the multi-storey car parks?
The car parking numbers are based on the managed trip generation, as I understand it, as explained in the TA. There's no assessment that's based on the unmanaged levels. So if the 60% mode share target by car is not achieved, then that could impact on the car parking.
Then I think we need to turn to the operational management plan, which Mr. Dix relies upon on the basis that effectively the trip generation will be secured through the OMP, so the target will have to be met. We go to 2105Y. We have I think the most recent iteration of the management plan, the operational management plan.
Yes.
And this is I understand it, in terms of the operational management plan, if we go within that, please, to firstly, section 11. Sorry, there isn't a section 11, beg your pardon. Yeah, section 4, please, the purpose, beg your pardon. Just on PDF page 19. It's Y, CD2 105Y, so it was on the list but we haven't been to it yet. So sorry, yes, you probably
Okay.
lost it when you. And section 4, which is on page 19, has the purpose of the operational management plan. And we can see that 4.1, the purpose of the operational management plan is to provide the commitment to manage the level of peak period traffic that travels to and from the site to the level set out in table 3.3, which is effectively the managed.
That's correct. Yes, that's what it says.
And just in terms of your view on the likely effectiveness of the operational management plan, having regard to what is proposed and what can realistically be secured.
As we touched, so the measures in the operational management plan include all the sustainability measures, so the improvements to footway, cycleways, the Volvo bridge connection, the management of the car parking, the AMPR system, the bus service, amongst other things. You know, as I've said, it's all interrelated in terms of whether that mode share can be met and achieved, and whether therefore the OMP relying on those measures is going to be successful as well. I mean, the OMP in itself does set out in paragraphs 4.10 and 4.11 on page 17 remedial measures if the other measures that we've discussed are not successful in terms of managing that traffic. And it says that other remedial measures may be changes to the operation of the site, higher frequency bus services, additional improvements for pedestrians and cyclists, and dedicated car parking. Now, for car sharers, the difficulty with many of those is that they're just undefined. I mean, what additional improvements for pedestrians and cyclists? Where do they go? What do they do? What do they achieve? Higher frequency bus services, when we've seen, as I've discussed, the evidence from other sites that suggests that not many people do use the bus. Changes to the operation of the site. Again, I'm not clear what that means. So again, confidence in achieving that mode share, sustainable travel target, and all the other interrelated considerations, I think is challenging.
Having regard to the challenges, having seen what is proposed and what could potentially be proposed by way of remedial measures, what is your judgment on whether or not this location is one which either is or can be made sustainable in the context of paragraph 110 of the MPPF?
I don't think it is. As I've explained in my evidence, you know, the site is severed. It's clearly severed in transport terms from Marlow. It's not well related or well connected to it. The standard of the provision that's being provided in terms of footway, cycleway connections is not to a standard that meets normal standards or exceeds them in order to get that mode shift. And the evidence, because of the nature of the use as well, is such that it appears that not many people travel by sustainable modes.
And you are criticised by Mr. Dix effectively for seeking a predict and provide solution as opposed to the vision-led approach advocated by the MPPF. How do you respond to that criticism?
We're not working generally to a predict and provide basis. The council is open and encourages non-predict and provide, so vision-led approaches. The trouble is that the vision needs to be realistic and it needs to reflect the characteristics of the use, the characteristics.
Gina, Harvey, can we get a new mic?
Thank you.
But you were mid-flow in terms of,
I can't. Yeah, as I explained in my rebuttal, the location is severed from Marlow by the A404, and it detracts from the appellate's ability to meet its vision, in my view. I explained in my rebuttal that the MPPF glossary term for vision-led means achieving well-designed, sustainable and popular places. I also explained in my rebuttal in paragraph 2.3 that in my opinion, the location of the site and the infrastructure leading to it is not well designed or sustainable to the extent where it will achieve the vision. In paragraph 2.5 of my rebuttal, I explained that the vision-led targets just based on the evidence from the other sites, I just don't think are achievable, and they're predicated on the need on an agreed a need to agree a travel plan as part of the vision, and yeah, the council doesn't agree to the travel plan targets, so I don't consider that it's not that the council doesn't agree with the vision-led approach. It's simply that it doesn't agree that this vision is achievable and realistic.
okay, we'll now move to the first area of disagreement identified in paragraph 110 of the statement of common ground, was the departure from standards on the A4155 western approach to Westhorpe interchange, and whether that needs to be fully addressed. And here, I think if we go to page 56 of your main proof of evidence, and if we also have open 2105B. It's C2/105B, and within that PDF 6. Oh,
It's sheet number ending 021.
let's reduce mine in size to. Madam, you should have the Westhorpe interchange. That's right. And we're here concerned with the westbound approach to the Westhorpe interchange.
That's correct.
And if we look at, we go to your main proof, page 56, departure from stand on the eastern side of the Westhorpe interchange. You set out the requirement of DMRB in 561.
That's correct, yeah.
And in terms of the entry path radius, 563. you identify the importance of the entry path radius, and then you put that in the context of the scheme in 564. You've got an extract from a drawing there. We can look at the core document. We can see the same position illustrated.
That's correct.
On the westbound approach on the east side of the interchange. It says entry path radius no greater than 100 metres in accordance with CD 116 DMRB para 3.26 not compliant. So here, if you there's an existing issue in terms of there's an existing departure as far as the design of the junction is concerned, and yours, I think, accept that there would be an improvement with the design here, but it would still not be meeting the standard, and you're seeking full compliance.
Yes, as explained in my evidence here, starting at 5.61, we accept that there is an existing non-standard or non-compliant deflection on that approach, and so entry path radius. However, what we sought to do with the appellant was to have that comply with the relevant standards. The relevant standards are there, and DMRB CD 116 says that the principal objective of roundabout design, this is in my 5.61, is to minimise delay for vehicles whilst maintaining safe passage of all road users through the junction. It explains that this is achieved by a combination of geometric layout features, match the traffic flows and speed. I think importantly, it goes on to say that deflection, let me find the right part, measured with blah, 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 blah. Bear with me, sorry. There is a part that says it's the single most important thing to be looked at. Yeah, this is what DMRB recognises, that it's an important thing in terms of achieving safety at roundabouts.
Yeah, I think you quoted it at 563 of your
I
brief,
did.
paragraph
Thank you.
3.21 of DMRB.
Yeah, so it says the entry path radius is a measure of the deflection to the left imposed on vehicles entering a roundabout. It is the most important determinant of safety at roundabouts because it governs speed of vehicles through the junction and whether drivers are likely to give way to circulating vehicles. I do recognise in my evidence, however, that with the signalisation of the roundabout, that vehicles will not need to necessarily always give way to the right at the stop line. They won't need to give way to the right at the stop line. However, what we do see with signal controlled junctions is that the vehicles can accelerate towards the light to try and beat the light, to try and get through before it changes to red. So there is a speed related issue, and I think the safety audit as well acknowledges on the approaches that high friction surfacing would be needed because speed may be an issue on those approaches. And I think that's in, find the relevant part again. Problem A1 on PDF, page 62, which is the RSA. You don't need to get it necessarily CD 2.105D. The road safety audit notes that given the de-restricted speed limit, although again that may change at the interchange and on its approaches, vehicles may approach these stop lines at relatively high speeds. So DMRB is there. CD 116 says that deflection is an important thing to counter high speeds on the entry to roundabouts. The safety audit also recognises that speeds could be high on the approaches to these stop lines. And therefore, given that the appellants are doing such a fundamental redesign, as I would call it, to that that eastern approach, so the westbound approach, the site side of the Westhorpe interchange. So it would have been within their gift to quite easily come up with a compliance scheme. The council is concerned about achieving safe and suitable access and designs that are compliant with relevant standards for the safety of users. And again, it's just simply an opportunity that could have been resolved.
And Mr. Dick says, well, with the signalisation, the roundabout, and with the introduction of the site access, roundabout speed won't be an issue, and therefore the departure will not give rise to a safety issue. Your judgment?
Well, the safety audit recognises that there may be a speed issue, and that's why it's recommending measures that help reduce those speeds. As I've explained, you know, the nature of signal control junctions and signal control roundabouts, particularly when you're on a rural road, you'll be accelerating off the site access roundabout towards Westhorpe. If the lights change, there is a temptation and a risk that people might try and jump the lights, but equally, even on a green, they may try and go through there at speed. The purpose of the deflection is to control that speed, prevent sideswipe collisions, and reduce accident risk.
Good. Let's then move to the next issue, which is whether it was necessary and is necessary for the VISIM model to be extended further to the west to consider the highway implications of traffic associated with the film studios on the A4155 between the crossing adjacent to Bobmore Lane and Marlow Town Centre. And in terms of the VISIM modelling, there's now, you can see from the statement of common ground at 1.6 agreement that the outstanding issues subject to the extent of the modelled area are agreed.
Yes, Atkins Realis on behalf of the council have confirmed that the construction of your model, if you like, is sufficient within the extent of the model area.
And so if we take up your main proof, please, and go to paragraph 518. We can see there's reference to the 2022 TA and the VISIM model, and that will enable a dynamic assessment of each junction in combination and the interaction between junctions within the study area. Why is that important here?
It's important where, and the appellants recognise it in their submissions, including in the TA, as you've referenced there, that there are interactions between junctions that occur, and VISIM is a model that can understand and tell you and look at the implications of queuing, for instance, that goes back from one junction through to another, and the blocking and so on and so forth. So when you've got many interactions with signal control crossings and uncontrolled crossings and junctions in close proximity of different forms, a VISIM model was a good tool to be able to look at that.
Then if we could go to your appendix 8, I think CD 908. We have a Atkins Realis technical note.
Yes.
Final version, I think April 2024, just to identify what the VISIM model results were showing at that point of time. We go to page 9 of that, please, and figure 2.3.
Yes. So that shows the network. I'm sure, Mum, you're familiar looking at that. So that shows Westhorpe interchange on the left-hand side and the site access roundabout going towards the east. What you can see there is the little blobs all the way through there represent queuing traffic. Atkins have actually annotated this and say queues on the A4155 and congestion westbound, queues on Slip Road. And this is in the 2034, you can see from the title underneath, managed scenario on the A4155 east. So it shows queuing across the junctions, across the site access, and going out the window.
And in terms of blocking back,
Yeah, it shows junctions are blocking back. Atkins Realis actually say in the bullet points that go underneath that that they there are significant queues that go go off of the network. I'm trying to find the right bullet. There is a bullet that says it. So Atkins Realis that there are improvements to queues on and delays in journey times on the slip roads, but that in summary that comes at the expense of the impact on the local highway network. So you see the first bullet underneath the image says that there are improvements on to queues and delays in journey times, and queues reduced by 1 kilometre. It then goes on to say, bear with me. I think we need to go on a bit, actually. Bear with me, sorry, Ron. Right, I'm with you now. Page 8 of the PDF is the important part for us. And you'll see underneath the table 2.3, there are a number of bullet points. So the 1, 2, 3, fourth bullet from the bottom says the increase in queues. So this is in relation to Westhorpe Interchange results overview. That the increase in queue to 129 PCU, 730 meters extends back to the start of the model entry link and actually causes a latent demand of between 20 and 60 vehicles that are unable to enter the network at the end of the AM peak hour. I can say that 60 vehicles are equivalent to an additional queue of 345 meters, representing queuing outside of the model area that could cause issues within this Little Marlow. So effectively, what we've got from this note is a queue that is extending westbound through Parkway Roundabout onto Westhorpe Interchange beyond the site access and beyond the model extents. So it's a long queue of over 1 kilometre. And that's how we concluded in the April 2024 consultation response prior to committee that there was a severe impact on the highway network. There was simply just a massive queue.
good. And just in that context, if we could also take up your rebuttal, please, at 2.7 to 2.9. But you're also criticised by Mr. Dix for failing to take a balanced view towards the Westhorpe interchange and the benefit there. What is your response to that?
My response to that is, as of April 2024 and committee, that we did take a balanced view, and we say that we recognised in the consultation response dated April 2024, the overall scheme is forecast to provide benefits to the AM peak, which is mainly due to the significant savings along the A404 northbound off-slip. Although increases in queues, delays and journey times have been shifted onto the A4155 in both directions at Westhorpe interchange. I then continue that whilst it's noted that conditions on the A404 improve as part of the proposed changes to the Westhorpe interchange, the fact that the proposed changes and the addition of development traffic cause such severe impacts to queuing and delay on the local highway network cannot be ignored. The queuing extends beyond the model extents as a direct result of the proposed development, so the true impact of the development may well be more severe than reported. The development traffic impacts on the local highway network within Buckinghamshire has been shown to be severe by the assessment work carried out, and this is something that the Highway Authority cannot find acceptable. I conclude at 2.9, therefore, that it was a balanced approach. We did recognise the improvements on the A404, but we didn't accept that that should be to the significant expense of the A4155 and local residents.
And now then, let's move to the new modelling and the conclusions of that. And clearly, in terms of the principal change, that was the signalisation of the crossing by Bodmore Lane, which is shown by the model to decrease the westbound congestion significantly.
That's correct.
And in relation to that, if we take up your proof of evidence, please, 551, main proof of evidence. You set out there the advice from Atkins Realis that any implications of releasing this traffic on other parts of the network, such as the centre of Marlow, have not been considered as it's not included within the modelled extent. So just explain the concept of the releasing this traffic, what that means, and why the effect on the centre of Marlow needs to be considered in your view.
Yes, so we know that in the modelling for committee, as I've just explained, that we had a massive westbound queue in particular that was extended back through the Westhorpe interchange, through the site access. And Mr. Dix identified that that was partly due to the crossing at Bodmore Lane. And that was one of the reasons why he extended the model to cover that crossing, to look at the effects of that signalisation. And on that basis, the modelling has shown on face value that resolves the issue. The concern we have, or I have in particular, is that the model extents have been moved to include the crossing but don't go beyond that. And the basic principle with traffic models is that once you get to the extents of the model, traffic is free to leave. Fundamentally, that's where we have a difference of opinion, I think. I don't think traffic is free to leave once it gets beyond Bodmore Lane. There are many other interruptions, if you like, or potential interruptions a short distance away that haven't been taken into account.
And some, I think you've obviously been on site with the inspector, you pointed out the nature of the network there. And so in terms of your position, in terms of the extent of the modelled area, what is it? What's your advice to the inspector?
Well, obviously, the model was changed late to include this extension. It was after the appeal was submitted. It was in the run-up to exchange of evidence, so we didn't have much opportunity to discuss with the appellant. But you know, if this was during the course of the application and we'd looked at the results and the Highway Authority, on who I work on behalf of, would have raised the query. Well, look, you've included this crossing. It now releases all the traffic. That can't be right. In simple terms, we need to do something more and extend the model, I think, further to look at these other interruptions and interactions a short distance away until we can have confidence that that traffic is resolved and doesn't just artificially disappear. Thank you.
Mr. Dix says, well, you've got the information you need because outside and beyond that area, the individual junctions have been modelled as necessary. What do you say to that?
We go back to what was said in evidence earlier, picking up, I think, on what was said in the TA. I'll go back to find the right part again.
I think if we go to CD 12105A. Is the second supplementary transport assessment, and within that to PDF 61.
On page 61, yes.
At 9.3.
Yeah, so this is the second supplementary transport assessment, where it says that junctions within Marlow are frequently impacted in the peak hours by network congestion caused by typical town centre related activities and queuing which extends back from nearby junctions. This results in exit blocking and prevents each junction from operating consistently as a standalone junction during the peak hours. Again, one of the reasons for doing the VISM, as we discussed earlier, was to look at those interactions between junctions. So it's an ideal candidate to look at those concerns within the town centre, and that simply hasn't been done.
Then if you go on to 9.4, what does it say in terms of the knock-on impacts and use of Arcady or Piccady modelling?
Yes, it says it's not possible to accurately replicate the knock-on impacts of a congested network at an individual junction within Arcady or Piccady, so the standalone junction models of roundabouts and priority junctions. It's therefore considered that Marlow Town Centre models should not be adjusted. So this was a discussion at the time about needing to calibrate those town centre standalone models against recorded queues. So the council was saying that their models didn't replicate the queuing that was going on there. They simply say that it's a congested network. They shouldn't have to do it. It reinforces the point, though, that you've extended the model. You've included the Bodmore Lane junction. You've effectively then opened the gate to that traffic and assumed it just disappears. My view is that it's recognised that there are congestion issues in the town centre. It's recognised that there are knock-on impacts between junctions and highway infrastructure that simply hasn't been considered.
And what do you say to Mr. Dix's point that we're principally here concerned with the AM peak and there would be very little traffic?
It's about
effectively generated by the site in the AM peak, affecting the queue.
In terms of departures from the site, that may be the case, but there are there are arrivals at the site. There's around, I can't remember the exact figure, I'm sure we can find it. There are around 500 movements, I think, in each peak. That's not an insignificant level of traffic. It doesn't necessarily need to be travelling westbound to have an impact on that queue. It's all it's all the interactions between the junctions, all the interruptions giving way, and so on and so forth, all the delays at the signals and waiting for lights. It all has a knock-on effect, and it needs to be looked at around, particularly when the previous modelling showed that there was a queue that extended and was impacted by the development in the AM peak hour all the way across the network.
And so if we go to Mr. Dix's main proof of evidence, and this is pages 26 onward, where he has the future year VISIM modelling results set out for both the managed and unmanaged, your overall position in terms of the modelled results which he shows is what?
That we can't draw a reliable conclusion on them because it assumes that there's a free exit from the model extent of Bodmore Lane. That's not what I think happens, for the reasons that we've seen on site and for the reasons I've explained.
And just then, in terms of the modelling results, there's obviously the managed and unmanaged results shown. Mr. Dix relies on the managed as being the realistic and reasonable scenario for the purposes of assessment. Your judgment in terms of managed versus unmanaged?
As we've discussed, as I've set out and put in evidence today, there is no clear evidence from other film studios that shows that 60% mode share target will be met. The sustainability characteristics of the site equally lead me to conclude that it's not going to be attractive to walking and cycling to the extent where mode shift targets that are ambitious, as admitted by the appellant, will be achievable. So I rely primarily on the unmanaged scenario. But regardless, whether it's unmanaged or managed, in terms of the traffic impact side of things, the issue with the VISIM model and the gate being open and not looking at the knock-on effects downstream close by, they apply equally to both.
And then if we just return to the areas of disagreement in the Statement of Common Ground 110, whether there would be a severe cumulative residual impact on the A4155 when the mitigation measures, including the AMP travel plan and the proposed improvement scheme at the Westhorpe interchange, have been implemented. What is your position?
I'm unable to conclude on that matter with the evidence in front of me because it doesn't show us a true reflection of what we think will happen on the ground to be able to draw that conclusion.
Good. And then before we move on to the next issue identified in the areas of disagreement, I just want to pick up one point which has been raised by interested parties at the inquiry, because you're here on behalf of the Highway Authority, and that's the issue of Cookham Bridge and whether or not there was any assessment of effects of the development on Cookham Bridge, just to assist the inspector.
Yeah, so the appellants did provide information in relation to the traffic distribution going towards Cookham Bridge. They concluded that there wasn't a material impact. I think in accordance with the flow diagrams, Appendix H of the transport assessment, which I think is CD1-238C, the flows towards Caursend Road the flows at the Caursend Road roundabout towards Cookham Bridge, so on Station Road in Bourne End, shows I think the 2.9% proportion of development traffic to and from that area in both peaks. Looking at the numbers, I think they're fairly low at sort of 16 or 20 movements two-way in each peak hour. I think that's a low threshold of between 1.7 and 2.5% impact. We set out in our original consultation response, CD3-005 in September 2022, that our threshold for assessing junctions was set at 5% impact or greater. And that's something that we've worked with typically for many, many years. And as the impact on Causden Road was less than 5%, we didn't pursue that.
Okay, thank you. Then let's turn to the next issue. I think we can combine the matters raised on the site layout with regard to servicing and the effectiveness of the site management plan, given the connection between the two. And we have in your main proof of evidence just turn up section 7. Various concerns you have identified. And in terms of the concerns, I don't think we need to go through them all, but if you can just summarise your principal concerns, put them in the context of HGVs and the likely usage by HGVs.
Yeah, it's a general principle. I would say good design practice as advocated by Manual for Streets and other design guidance is that reversing goods vehicles should be avoided where possible. We sought to engage with the appellant to deal with a number of cul-de-sacs within the site to avoid the potential for collisions between reversing goods vehicles. There's an image actually at 7.11 in my evidence, paragraph 7.11.
Page 98.
Page 98, that identifies just a sample of cul-de-sacs where vehicles would need to reverse.
Mr. Dick says, well, effectively the number of HGVs and the level of HGV use of the site is limited, and this is at 11.7 of his main proof on page 69. What's your view in relation to likely HGV usage?
Yeah, Mr. Dix describes them as limited and sets them out in that paragraph 11.7 and suggests that this means that the chance of the two HGVs arriving, leaving and opposing each other is very limited. I think it needs to be looked at in the context that Mr. Dix has expressed them as just a couple of hours worth of vehicles. What you can have with this site is goods vehicles arriving all day, every day, potentially. And again, if you look at the Shepperton Trix data, I don't necessarily want to take you back there, Mark. Appendix F of the TA, you'll recall that we looked at, just one of those things we looked at was occupancies. There's another table there that talks about OGVs, goods vehicles. Similar calculations, you can base them on page 40 of that PDF or page 62 on the various survey dates, suggest that if you look at the daily numbers, you could be, even at Shepperton, they were up around 149 goods vehicles per day. Now, I'd say that that doesn't mean that the chances of those meeting are limited. It only takes one goods vehicle to meet with a pedestrian or a cyclist there to be a serious collision. Shepperton, as I understand it as well from the Trix data, suggests that it's about half the size of the proposed Marlow Film Studios. So the numbers could be far greater than the 149 if you prorata that up.
Mr. Dick says, well, there's clearly the site management plan here, production of films and high-end TV is a very highly managed process, and they'll use banksmen and other safeguards in terms of ensuring the site operates safely. Your response?
It shouldn't have to rely on an intervention like that. It should just be, this is a planning application on a fresh site, you know, starting from scratch. It should have been quite reasonable and possible to design that out. The MPPF is clear that design should be high quality, safe, suitable. I believe that those are key things that should be met, and that they could have been. As I say, it only takes one good reverse and goods vehicle to collide with pedestrian for there to be serious consequences.
Good, then I think final point, if we just go to your main proof of evidence, please, and paragraph 8.9. Is the last paragraph of your summary conclusions on page 107. Just to ask, does that remain your view in terms of the appeal proposal having regard to all of the information now before the inquiry?
It does, yeah.
Thank you, Madam. That's the evidence in chief. Well done, Mr. Tester, for negotiating the core documents.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, suitable point to adjourn. Anything to raise before we do so? Mr. White.
Well, should we just do a quick order at the timetable?
Yes, let's.
We know where we are. Because, think on any basis that when. Next Wednesday is quite long. We potentially got 8.5 hours.
Well, I put no, because I've got John Fannon overrunning onto Thursday morning. That makes sense.
It does. So the 3 hours. Yes,
probably an hour and a half.
Estimate's 3 hours. Yes. So I see we've got an hour and a half on the Thursday. So an hour and a half. So we're, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So next week, your intention is to start at 9:30 every morning.
Well, yeah. Do you think we need to start at 9:30 on Tuesday? I think we've only got 6 hours sitting, potentially 5.5 to 6. I'm happy to start at 10 if you want to start at 10, or just conscious that there's inquiry outside the inquiry and 9:30 is an early start. So
I'm sitting quietly, largely not in my hands. So.
Is there any restriction on what time we leave here? I mean, there was one night where the cleaners were hassling us to get out.
that was a Friday afternoon, wasn't it? When we'd
The public evening session, wasn't it?
it was public session. It was a public session, whichever one it was. I know that.
Well, on the basis.
Hang on,
of-
Harvey's put his hand up. 7 p.m.
Okay.
Oh, it will definitely not be set after that.
I think we could start at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. I think 4 hours is probably the ceiling
Okay,
rather than the floor, you'll be pleased to know.
excellent.
And then Mr. Dick say 2 hours. So yeah, it might be that I don't quite finish the cross-examination in the morning and we slightly run over, and then Mr. Dick. So I think that's fine for Tuesday, and then Wednesday. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Bird's got a view on whether he's still 3 to 4 hours on Wednesday, and Mr. Fannon's examination in chief. I think my cross-examination at 3 hours of Mr. Fannon is probably, again, a ceiling rather than a floor.
And we've got the session Thursday morning to run over into.
We
for
do.
that anyway.
We do. Then Mr. Sensical on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Mine are generally ceilings, so I would generally aim to come in under.
Excellent. And the roundtable session that's planned for Friday may not take that long anyway, since we've already done one. So
Have you got a view on On the 24th, we are
Yes,
going to do it virtually, aren't we?
we are. I think so. Is that what everybody wants to do? Yeah.
And is Buck's going to circulate the link? Is that the plan? Do you know?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So 10 o'clock next Tuesday. Mr. Tester, you can't speak to any members of your team about the case over the weekend. So please don't. Excellent. Okay, we will come back at 10 o'clock Tuesday, 11th of February, adjourned until then. Thank you.